I woke up to a miracle today. Triggers stay as I find my way. No judgment to lead astray. In this peaceful state I'll stay.
Welcome back to A Course in Miracles in Practice. We are ready to explore Lesson 287 today. You are my goal, my Father, only you.
This lesson is incredibly direct. It points straight towards peace and invites you, our listener, to take a really honest look at what you're pursuing in your life day to day. It helps us notice how often our attention gets diverted to, temporary things, substitute goals that don't really lead anywhere lasting.
And that noticing that moment of seeing the substitute for what it is, that's really the core practice here. If you have one of those moments today where you catch yourself chasing something fleeting and manage to pivot back, we'd love to hear about it.
Sharing those experiences helps everyone. You can always write to us at ACIM@theworldharmonyproject.org.
That's ACIM@theworldharmonyproject.org.
And we also put out thoughts and practice ideas on social media. Our handle on TikTok and YouTube is @theworldharmonyproject.
We genuinely appreciate hearing from you. It shows how this practice comes alive in real situations. Okay, let's turn to the lesson itself now.
Lesson 287. You are my goal, my Father. Only you. Where would I go but heaven?
What could be a substitute for happiness?
What gift could I prefer before the peace of God?
What treasure would I seek and find and keep that can compare with my identity?
And would I rather live with fear than love?
You are my goal, my Father. What but you could I desire to have? What way but that which leads to you could I desire to walk?
And what except the memory of you could signify to me the end of dreams and futile substitutions for the truth?
You are my only goal. Your Son would be as you created him.
What way but this could I expect to recognize myself and be at one with my identity?
This lesson really asks for a deep level of honesty, doesn't it? Looking underneath our actions.
It does. It requires an almost surgical precision and self-awareness. Noticing, from moment to moment, what am I really trying to get out of this conversation, this project, this interaction?
What's the actual motivation?
No, exactly. The task is to constantly catch ourselves when we substitute something else for peace. The Course isn't saying we're trying to be bad, but that we're fundamentally mistaken about what we truly desire.
And the sign we've made that mistake is immediate. It's not like you have to wait for everything to fall apart. You feel that distance from peace, maybe some anxiety, or that little internal push to strive or control things, that's the indicator.
That's the signal right there.
It means a substitute goal, something else, has taken priority over our real purpose, which is peace. Maybe it's wanting recognition or trying to look good or even just seeking a distraction for a minute.
And these substitutes are often quite subtle. It's not usually about wanting a huge mansion or a fancy car, though it could be. More often, it's things tangled up with how we see ourselves.
Like needing to be right.
Yes, or needing certainty. We might chase the feeling of being certain about something, thinking that temporary feeling will give us the security that only comes from knowing our true identity in God.
Or wanting to feel like we've mastered a complex situation.
That's another one. We chase those feelings because we believe they will provide lasting security. And that little knot of stress, that friction inside, that's the alarm bell. It tells us we're chasing the dream, not the reality.
So that feeling, that recognition of the distance, isn't a sign of failure. It's actually the starting point for the practice.
It's the choice point presenting itself. This is what the Course sometimes calls the holy instant. It's that specific moment where you see the mistake, you pause internally, and you choose again.
And the correction isn't about forcing something. It's a decision, isn't it? To bring your attention back to the one real goal.
It's recognizing, for instance, okay, right now I'm trying to get approval from others, and then just letting that go, releasing the mind back to its natural state, which is peace.
It's not necessarily about stopping what you're doing externally.
No, often it isn't. We sometimes think returning to peace means we have to go meditate or clear our minds in some elaborate way. But here it's about an instant internal shift in priority.
So the Holy Spirit asks us to change the reason behind the action, not always the action itself.
Exactly. If I'm composing an email, the substitute goal might be, I need to write the perfect email so everyone is impressed. The shift is deciding, my true goal here is to communicate clearly and contribute usefully.
And knowing your worth isn't tied to the reply you get back.
Precisely. The external result stops being the measuring stick for your internal state or your success in that moment.
That helps cut through the ego's arguments too, because the ego insists that if you stop chasing the substitute like external success, you'll just become lazy or ineffective.
It warns you you'll be irrelevant.
Right. But this lesson flips that. It says when your only goal is peace, your actions actually become clearer, more focused.
And ultimately more effective because they aren't driven by anxiety anymore. All that energy spent worrying or trying to manage perceptions gets freed up.
So if I'm focused on the spreadsheet numbers being accurate and clear, I do better work than if I'm focused on proving I'm indispensable.
That's it. The ego interference, overcomplicating, worrying, losing sight of the main point comes from pursuing the substitute.
This honesty has to go deep, though, even with things that look good on the surface, like acts of service.
That's a crucial point. We have to look underneath. Am I being kind because I want to be seen as kind? Do I need to feel morally superior right now?
Is it about feeling better about myself?
If the answer is yes, then it's still a substitute goal, however well disguised. Lesson 287 pushes us to find the real driver. If we're acting simply because love is our nature, without needing anything back, then we're on the path to the Father.
Let's talk about specific examples. I see this constantly in a corporate setting. The substitute often centers around visibility, making sure you're seen as essential.
Okay.
I might spend days building a complex financial model. The actual purpose is clear, accurate numbers for the team to make good decisions. That's the function.
But then the shift happens.
It creeps in. Suddenly, my focus isn't on the clarity of the data anymore. It snaps to how the work will be perceived.
Oh.
I start thinking, will the boss see how complex this was? Do the execs know how much time it took? Am I looking competent enough for that next promotion?
The focus shifts from function to validation.
Exactly. And that's chasing a substitute. It's exhausting because external opinions are always changing, always temporary.
I experience a similar dynamic running my own business, but the substitute often feels perhaps more tied to self-worth.
How so?
I'll start the day clear on my intention, extend honesty, be creative, see the business as service, grounded, but then maybe a client questions a price or a project hits a snag.
And the pressure comes on.
Instantly, I can feel myself shifting into proof mode. My goal stops being about extending peace or clarity and becomes about proving I'm capable, I'm valuable, I'm worth what they're paying me.
That's a really helpful distinction. In the corporate world, it might be about outperforming others for approval. In the small business context, it can be more about your fundamental worth being tied to the project's success.
But in both scenarios, the feeling of competence or being seen as competent gets prioritized over the actual purpose of the task at hand.
And that immediately creates anxiety.
Of course. If my sense of worth depends on the client saying, "You're amazing, that was perfect," then my peace is completely outside my control. It's dependent on external factors.
Which is the opposite of what the lesson says. You are my goal, my Father. The only real validation is internal, knowing we're acting from our true identity.
The only approval that matters is that internal alignment.
But this brings up a practical point. If we genuinely stop seeking external validation, how do we stay sharp professionally? Isn't competence in the world often measured by handling stress and delivering results under pressure?
That's a common concern, but the reconciliation comes from changing the internal reason, not necessarily the external action. The quality of your work doesn't suffer. Often it improves.
Because the energy isn't wasted.
Right. The energy that was going into anxiety, into defending yourself, into managing how things look. That energy is now available purely for the task itself. If your goal is clear communication of accurate data in that spreadsheet, you'll be more present, more focused, and probably make fewer mistakes.
So the motivation shifts, not the commitment to doing good work.
Exactly. If your goal becomes proving your status, that's when you introduce interference. You might overcomplicate things, fuss about minor details, and lose sight of the main objective.
So the singular goal, God, peace, identity, stays constant. The work, the tasks, they just become the setting, the classroom for practicing that.
The work transforms from being a source of potential stress into the means of practice itself. It's how we walk the way to God in every ordinary circumstance.
The tasks are the curriculum.
And the internal shift in motivation is the actual learning.
Okay, so we make this internal shift, but living this way out loud, so to speak, gets complicated. The world isn't set up for this.
It really isn't. Our whole society seems built on striving, comparison, anxiety-driven productivity. When you choose to act from peace, to not engage in that frenzy, it can be confusing for people.
It can even irritate them sometimes.
It creates a kind of dissonance. I've seen it in high-pressure meetings. If I manage to stay calm while others are, getting agitated or using aggressive language, my calmness can be misinterpreted.
People think you're not engaged.
Sometimes, yes. Or they think, I don't understand how serious the situation is. They equate a lack of visible stress with a lack of commitment or competence.
I've definitely had colleagues ask if I was checked out during a crisis because I wasn't running around looking panicked. There's this assumption that high performance requires visible stress.
It's a deeply ingrained belief.
And you have to gently clarify, maybe just by your actions, that calmness actually leads to better clarity. It helps you see what really needs attention instead of just reacting to the loudest fear.
And this confusion isn't limited to work. It shows up in personal relationships too, especially ones that were partly built on, say, shared complaints or anxieties.
Ah, yes, the commiseration bond.
When I consciously decided to stop participating in endless negativity, dissecting every minor slight or workplace drama, some friends reacted quite strongly.
How do they perceive it?
Sometimes they felt I was dismissing their feelings or avoiding the real issue because I wasn't mirroring their upset.
That makes sense from an ego perspective. Shared anxiety, shared victimhood, those can function as substitute goals in relationships. They fulfill a need to feel connected, even if it's through mutual suffering.
Right. When you step out of that pattern, when you refuse to keep feeding the idea that the world is just a terrible, hostile place, you're implicitly changing the unspoken rules of the relationship.
Your motivation shifts.
Completely. My aim becomes responding from steadiness, maybe offering genuine listening or a helpful perspective, rather than just adding fuel to the fire of complaint.
But that refusal to join in the negativity can feel like rejection to the other person initially.
It can, because the goal of the interaction has subtly shifted from let's validate our shared fear to let me extend peace here. This requires a lot of patience because you're operating from a different premise.
Yet, when you hold that steady space, when you offer that non-judgmental presence consistently, doesn't the conflict or confusion tend to dissolve more quickly?
It often does. You're not providing the reaction, the fuel that the ego conflict depends on to keep going. We're reminded that the true goal is always within reach, untouched by external chaos, unless we choose the substitute.
The Course talks about teaching through presence, right? This seems directly related.
It's exactly that. We aren't asked to convince or lecture anyone. The idea is that simply being anchored in peace, showing up consistently calm regardless of the drama around us, demonstrates another way is possible.
We become a kind of living example.
A quiet option for others to consider when they're ready. And that quiet demonstration often speaks louder than any argument we could make about why peace is better.
If someone sees you navigate high-stakes situations without falling apart, repeatedly, the evidence is right there. But acting this way requires enormous trust.
It really does. And that's where the ego puts up its biggest fight.
What's the core fear there?
The ego screams. If you stop defending yourself, if you stop striving for those external markers, you'll lose respect. People will walk all over you. You'll lose your connections.
It feels like a threat to survival, almost. Stop performing, stop existing.
It feels that way. But the Course assures us the opposite is true. Trusting this path actually allows the genuine connections, the work rooted in real purpose, to become clearer.
And the things based on fear or performance just fall away.
They tend to fall away or transform into something more authentic. It can be uncomfortable letting go of those old security blankets we thought we needed.
So this is what walking the way to God means practically, day to day.
I believe so. It doesn't mean you stop achieving things or caring for your family or doing your job well. The tasks continue, the deadlines, the difficult conversations the family needs.
But the internal reason changes.
The command center shifts. You're no longer doing things to get something, temporary approval, relief, validation. You're acting from the inherent peace and completion you already possess. The action becomes an extension, not a demand.
So our actions themselves become the demonstration. How we handle that difficult client, the patience we find with a child, the clarity we bring to a messy problem.
Those become the evidence that peace is more effective than fear. It's the difference between doing something to get peace, which is impossible, a substitute goal, and doing something from peace, which reflects the singular goal.
And trusting that non-reaction is key. That seems like the hardest part sometimes.
It can be incredibly challenging. Peace doesn't operate on the world's frantic timetable. When your calmness meets someone else's anxiety, it can provoke a reaction. They might question you, feel challenged by your lack of defensiveness.
Because it implicitly questions their own investment in anxiety.
Possibly. In those moments, when your inner choice creates an outer ripple, that's when trust is paramount. We have to remember our focus is only on what we are extending from our own mind. How it's perceived by others in that moment is not our primary concern.
We don't need to persuade them or defend our peace.
No. The quiet steadiness communicates its own value over time. It offers an example, allowing others the space to choose it for themselves when they're ready, without feeling pressured by us.
That trust is the application of the lesson. Trusting that the single goal is enough for everything.
So when we book it all together, "You are my goal, my father," isn't just poetic language, it's a functional instruction manual.
A blueprint for living.
Yes, a blueprint for living with a calm certainty, even when everything around you seems to value anxiety and external validation as the only signs of success.
And there's an immediate benefit, isn't there? Each time we manage to make that internal choice to return to the real goal.
The day genuinely feels quieter. The volume turns down on the frantic demands because we're not chasing those substitutes anymore. We start mistaking mere activity for actual accomplishment or worth.
It simplifies things.
Enormously. And the deepest insight here is that peace isn't something we achieve or create. It's already here. Always.
It doesn't need to be earned or built.
It's just waiting for our attention. Waiting for us to pull our focus back from the distractions, the substitutes, the dreams we chase outside ourselves, and recognize the truth of our identity.
It's the ultimate shortcut, in a way. Make the goal singular, and the complexity falls away.
Okay, summarizing our exploration of Lesson 287 today, it strongly confirms that peace is inherent. It's already within us, just waiting for our attention to return from worldly distractions.
We saw that any flicker of anxiety is that immediate signal we've swapped our true goal for a substitute, something temporary like approval, success, or control.
We acknowledged how tough it is to be truly honest about these motivations, how easily peace gets traded without us even noticing sometimes. The goal itself, union with God, is constant. It's only our awareness that wavers.
We also touched on the world's resistance to this kind of peace, how choosing calmness can lead to misunderstandings, being seen as uncaring or checked out.
And those moments require deep trust. Trust that staying centered, trusting non-reaction, is ultimately more constructive than any defensive strategy.
And we looked at how this applies everywhere: work projects, family conversations, the internal pressure to perform. The external situation might not change, but the internal reason for acting does.
Ultimately, this lesson gives us a very practical way to move through life, making peace the guiding principle, the core reason behind everything we do, not just a far-off reward.
Let's anchor this understanding with an affirmation, carrying the commitment of Lesson 287 into our day. Today, I remember my only goal is God. Peace already exists within me. I choose to see what lasts. Thank you for joining us in this exploration. Until our next session, may peace truly guide every step you take.